Welcome to the theater. Take a seat, grab some popcorn, and get ready for another horror movie double bill. This is Friday Night Fratricide. $11:55, almost midnight. Maybe time for one more story.
Or two more stories.
Or maybe two more stories.
Or the same story, but again, 30 years later and much worse.
Yes, welcome back to Friday Night Fratricide. You're here with your hosts, Fraser and Ewan, the Happy Brothers. Some say we're the happiest of brothers.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I gotta tell you, I wasn't a very happy brother watching The Fog 2005.
Yeah, we've really done ourselves in pretty quickly on this podcast, picking out some proper shocking movies.
Yeah.
But we thought, since it is April 21st, if we've timed the recording correctly,
I think we have.
which I think we have. Yeah, we thought, but since that's the day it all goes down on Antonio Bay, that we'd cover one of our favourite films, and then the remake of one of our favourite films.
Yeah.
I almost said two of our favourite films, but no. Yeah, we'd go with 1980s, John Carpenter's The Fog, the original, the best.
Yeah.
My favourite John Carpenter film.
Easily one of the best. Maybe my favourite as well.
Yeah. And then it's lesser.
The 2005 remake of The Fog.
Oh God, yeah. Directed by, who was it directed by? Rupert Wainwright. I didn't even look up what else he's done. I was just like, I want this to be over.
He directed the only other film that I recognized on his IMDb page was a Disney Channel original movie from the 90s called Blank Check, which I haven't actually seen. It's just infamous because it is really creepy. Anyone who has seen it will know what I'm talking about.
Well,
I'm not going to get into it.
That tracks nicely.
It does.
The quality of this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, our horror double bill tonight is a bit of both worlds. Bit of good, bit of bad, bit of horror, bit of
whatever the hell
The
Fog 2005 was.
But yeah, we hope you enjoy our Fog special episode. So let's get stuck in with our first film, John Carpenter's 1980s The Fog.
Yeah.
What a movie.
Incredible movie.
I mean, it's just so good.
Just right the way through. Absolutely crushes it.
I'm so surprised every time I go and look at like the ratings and stuff and the reception at the time and since, because it's really not ranked that highly.
Yeah.
Against other John Carpenter films, it's usually like top 3, top 4. But as a horror movie in general, folk didn't rate it that highly.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why.
No, I don't know.
Genuinely can't understand how you can criticize this film.
Yeah. I honestly think it's about as close to a perfect horror movie as you can get.
Yeah.
Like, there aren't many things that I consider to be perfect. I think this is about as close as any horror movie has.
Yeah, I'm like running my way through, and I don't know that I could think of any like substantial criticism for the film. I like genuinely, like, there's so many little things, but so tiny, you know, like the kids acting. Yeah. It's like, but it was the 80s.
Oh no, I like the kids acting.
He's not that bad.
Oh man, no, the kids acting's really funny. I enjoy it.
But it's like, for a 1980s horror film, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. So yeah, there's really like just virtually nothing that I can say to criticize this film. But we shall go through it anyway. For any of you that may not have seen The Fog, which is probably very few of you, if you are listening to this podcast and you are interested in horror films, I imagine you've probably seen The Fog. Yeah. If you've not, do yourself a favour and watch it.
Go and watch it.
Set in Antonio Bay in presumably 1980. Yeah. 100 years after a tragedy occurred where the what's it called?
The Elizabeth Dane.
The Elizabeth Dane, but like, what's the name of the ship?
It's a clipper.
Clipper ship. That's what I was thinking of. The clipper ship, the Elizabeth Dane, crashed into Spivey Point, the coast of Antonio Bay, and killed all six crew members aboard the ship.
Yeah, I guess.
Or no, now this is where it confuses me, and I'm going to have to be really careful not to confuse stuff from the remake in it. But was there 6 members on board the Elizabeth Dane, or was it was the 6 original?
There was 6 founders.
Founders, yeah.
There was 6 founders in the original, which they changed. But I don't think they specify how many crew members there were.
Yeah.
You have to assume that because we see a group of maybe like 6 ghosts, there's probably about that number. But as we find out later on, there's like could potentially have been
more,
any number of people on board.
Yeah. So the crew, as we find out gradually through the film, were carrying settlers from they were all infected with leprosy. Is it from Spain? They came from Africa.
They
where was it? They said they came from.
They have the gold doubloons, which are Spanish.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's kind of implied that they came from Spain.
I don't know why I was thinking the coast of Africa.
Guess
I don't know why I thought that came to my head.
If they're in because it's California, so they're on the west coast.
Yeah.
So they could have come from anywhere.
Yeah.
Realistically.
But they struck a deal with the mayor at the time, the sort of group of founders of Antonio Bay, to buy half of Antonio Bay, or a bulk of the land, using their wealth, and they were betrayed. They were struck down by some fake bonfires, crashed into the rocks, and all killed. After sort of trying to maneuver their way through the fog.
Yeah.
And the townsfolk 100 years later are now sort of experiencing the revenge for being guided into the rocks that night, which we gradually learn throughout the film.
Yeah,
I've kind of
it's
spoiled
not revealed all at once, but yeah.
But I like how it plays out like a campfire tale, and I really love like how the intro just sort of establishes the atmosphere of the film.
It feels like I think people have definitely said this before, that this is like John Carpenter's like love letter to classic ghost stories.
Oh yeah,
you've got, and then with the opening with John Houseman as
Mr.
Mencken, whatever his name is, who's like a sea captain looking old man sitting on the beach telling this spooky ghost story to the kids, which is just such a one of the best opening scenes in any film ever. It really feels like an M.R. James story or something.
Yeah. Just the way that he establishes it as a campfire story, and as this sort of something mysterious happened, and did it really happen? We don't really know, whatever. And then it just builds on that from there, and we learn more about what actually happened. Yeah. So there is truth to the campfire story, but it's not quite how people tell it. I really like that. I love how it just builds upon this very simple premise. And the shots throughout the intro as well, like when it goes through the town and all the electricity's buzzing and the car alarms are going off, and there's the guys in the corner shop and things start falling off the walls. I just love that. I love all the shots. It just looks so beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like I would argue the best shot John Carpenter film.
Very, very possibly, yeah. Because I mean, a lot of his other films don't kind of play into that scenery.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I mean, something like The Thing, a lot of people think of as his best film, but it's very cramped and claustrophobic. Whereas this is very scenic. You're on the coast, you're in this small town, there's all these like beautiful establishing shots and everything.
I'd love to live in a place like that.
Oh yeah,
I've got to say,
absolutely.
There's something just so just serene.
I want to live in a lighthouse.
You
I have a thing about lighthouses. I don't know where it comes from, but that's like life goal. I want to live in a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere
and then be attacked by ghost pirates.
Yeah, I don't care. If I get to live a good few years in a lighthouse, I don't care how I die.
Yeah,
I can get struck down by Captain Blake. I'll be happy. Die a happy man.
Yeah, you could live like Stevie Wayne.
Stevie Wayne.
Yeah, the town's resident DJ. and radio presenter, and pretty much just kind of does everything. Does the music, does weather,
like
does sort of chat.
I was going to say like the shipping forecast. It's not really a shipping forecast, but like like warnings to the boats that are out.
Yeah. So it does kind of imply that she's the only one doing it as well. She's the only one up there day after day, which, like, kudos to her. Yeah. Played by the wonderful Adrienne Barbeau, who's just wonderful throughout.
Knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. And yeah, as you know, as the story goes on, we're introduced to Nick Castle, which I didn't realize that's a nod to
the stuntman that
the
played
Nick Castle,
who
played Michael Myers.
Yeah,
I'd never noticed that, and it was actually when I was watching the remake, because I never knew what his second name was, but his name's up on the
in the remake
on the docks.
Yeah,
is like the whatever their little fish shop or whatever says Nick Castle and Son. And I was like, oh, that's really neat. And then I looked and I was like, oh, that's his name in the original as well. I didn't realize that. I just knew him as Nick.
There's another character called, I think it's not, because he's called Dan. I was going to say it's the Weatherman. It's not the Weatherman.
Dan the Weatherman.
Dan the Weatherman. It's one of the characters, I can't remember who, is called Tommy Wallace, which is a reference to Tommy Lee Wallace, who was a collaborator of John Carpenter's for a long time, who like directed Halloween 3.
Ah, okay. Well, who?
But I can't think which character it is. But there is a character called Tommy Wallace.
On the sea,
could be one of the one of the fairly minor characters at some point.
But yeah, we're introduced to Nick Castle, played by Tom Atkins. He's driving along at night. He's enjoying some Stevie Wayne on the radio. Bumps into Jamie Lee Curtis, who's playing Elizabeth. Something.
I don't know if we find out her name because they changed her lore in the remake, so I don't know if we do know what.
I'm being really careful not to like cross over.
I don't think we do know what her surname is necessarily in the original.
She's playing a hitchhiker called Elizabeth, who's traveling across America up the coast of California, and they get along really well. Their chemistry actually is really great. Like it's sort of within the story, but also just acting wise, they seem to bounce off really well.
Yeah.
And they kind of get together and chum up for the rest of the movie, despite having no history together.
Yeah.
And there's something really kind of quaint and charming about that.
Yeah. I think this is maybe just down to the film being a little bit dated. I kind of wish they didn't sleep together. I sort of wish they just kind of became pals.
Yeah.
Because Tom Atkins is quite a bit older than Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is something that does happen in a few Tom Atkins films, is that he winds up having romances with significantly younger women, like in Halloween 3, as I mentioned. Yeah. So I kind of wish they didn't do that, but I do like the fact that the two of them are just kind of thrown together and then they just are together for the rest of the film.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it's them sleeping together is kind of whatever.
You can sort of gloss over it.
Like, you know,
you can sort of gloss over it.
There's no explicit shower sex scene or anything.
No, there's not. Thankfully, there's not. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. So as it goes on, we're introduced to the other folk of the town. We've got Janet Leigh, which I always forget Janet Leigh's in this.
Yeah.
And Nancy Loomis, who you know from Halloween, are playing the two sort of town organisers who are organising the big festival to celebrate 100 years of Antonio Bay. And yeah, things just start to go wrong, as they do in a horror film. We get the seagrass, a little fishing ship, goes out and gets attacked by the mysterious fog in it's a really creepy sequence. Like, I was thinking, like, rewatching it again, I was thinking, like, this is genuinely really, like, unsettling. The way that the shots are framed with these, like, shadowy figures against the fog, just unmoving shadowy figures with, like, weapons in their hands, unmoving. You can't see anything else. You can't see, like, the sort of hull of the boat. You can just see them standing in front of you. It's really, really creepy.
It is very spooky.
And the way that they're just so relentless, they slaughter everyone on board. It's a seagrass, isn't it?
The seagrass, yeah.
The little fishing ship. And that kind of kicks off Nick and Elizabeth sort of they go out to investigate. There's the great scene of them on the boat as well. The little 1-2 with the locker falling open. You thinking, oh, it's a fake out, and then the body falls on top of Jamie Lee Curtis. Is really great. And sort of alongside this, we've got Andy who finds a plank from the hull of the Elizabeth Dane. Andy's Stevie Wayne's son. And he gives it to her, and that sort of sets off all the machinery and the technology in the lighthouse. Goes all weird and sets fire to things, and it's weird things are happening, and nobody really knows what's going on. I presume it only takes place over a couple of days. I don't know. It's not.
It's just the one day.
Is it just the one? It's like just the one night.
We get because it opens right before midnight on April 21st.
Yeah.
And that's when that's when Nick and Elizabeth meet, and we get the introduction of Stevie Wayne and stuff, and that's when the stuff happens with the seagrass.
Yeah.
That's like the middle of the night.
So they get killed on the first night, yeah.
And then we get stuff during that day, and then by the night of April 21st, that's when the film ends.
So it is only one day, yeah.
It's just over the course of one day. Today, April 21st.
Today, yeah.
Lock your windows.
It's only every 100 years.
Yeah.
We need to wait another 57 years.
Yeah.
Wow. We're going to be alive in 57 years?
Yeah. I'm not that old.
You're not.
You'll only be in your 80s. That's not too bad.
Oh my God. It's scary to think about. I love just how tight everything is in this film. I love how every single scene has a purpose.
Yeah.
Literally every single scene establishes something new or builds up to something. All the stuff with Stevie in the lighthouse, she takes the plank, we realise there's something wrong with the plank, and there's the sort of voices over the radio that I think it's meant to be Captain Blake, that's kind of coming over the radio and spooking and warning of what's to come. And then we've got the town's planners, I can't remember their names. Mrs. Williams.
Mrs. Williams is Janet Leigh's character, and I can't remember her.
Yeah, Nancy Loomis.
Assistant.
They go and see Father Malone in the church, who's discovered this old book.
Hal Holbrook.
Yeah.
So good. Maybe the highlight of the film for me.
Drunken old.
Hal Holbrook in this. He's so good.
And there's that scene where he steps out of the shadows.
Yeah.
I remember because we went to see it in the cinema. I think we mentioned this in our introduction episode. We went to the cinema to see it. Obviously not at the time. We're not that old. There was a reissue a couple of years ago, and we went to see it. And that scene where he steps out of the shadows and grabs Mrs. Williams' shoulder, everyone in the cinema gasped. It's just so wonderfully shot.
It is.
You just don't expect it. But even that, even those scenes where they go and see him, and they're kind of, I can't remember why they go and see him in the first place.
I think it's just they're trying to make sure that he's going to be, because they're planning it's like the Founders Day festival thing that's happening that evening. They're just trying to see if he's going to be there, or see if the church is going to be involved in some way. Yeah.
But he kind of goes off on a bit of a tangent and reads the journal to them and explains that he's discovered this journal, and it's from his great grandfather or whoever, who was one of the founders of Antonio Bay. I keep wanting to say San Antonio, but I
guess that's a real place.
Where's that?
Also California, I think.
San Antonio, is it? Okay. Maybe that's why I'm getting mixed up. But yeah, it kind of reveals the true history of what happened that night. Everyone's under the sort of impression that the ship crashed and it was a great tragedy and oh no, everyone died. But he reveals that no, they were lepers and they deliberately caused them to crash.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a bit broken up about it. He doesn't really know what to think. He's kind of feeling guilt about the whole thing, but he's also drunk, so it's hard to to tell exactly what he's thinking. But yeah, even just those little scenes, those establishing scenes, there's always something going on and always something building up the plot, and it's sort of giving us a little bit more about what's going on, which I love. I just love this film. I don't know how many times I can say it.
It's fantastic.
So yeah, the second night comes and the fog rolls into town again. Mrs. What's her name? Mrs. Kobritz.
Oh yeah.
Andy's babysitter gets whacked pretty brutally.
Gets gotten.
She gets he sort of is. It's really funny because she's trying to put him to bed and he won't go, and she finally says like, no, you go off to bed. And like he's like, oh, okay. And as soon as he turns around, she gets grabbed from out the door and just like hacked to death. It's really brutal.
It is.
Yeah. Also, Andy mentioned something. What's a stomach pounder?
I googled it, right? The only time I found references to the phrase stomach pounder,
I don't want to know.
Is relating to in 1980s. It's like people tweeting at John Carpenter saying, "Hey, what the fuck is a stomach pounder?" And like, some people say that it's like an exercise, but that doesn't make sense because he's asking for a stomach pounder. Some people are saying that it's like quarter pounder, like he's asking for a burger.
A burger and a Coke.
But then it doesn't make sense that he's saying like after your lunch you can have that. It's like after your lunch you can have a second lunch.
Yeah, I don't know.
He asked for a stomach pounder and a Coke. For some reason, I always assumed that it was like an Alka-Seltzer or something. I don't know why.
8-year-old boy gonna be asking for
I don't know. It's a weird line that does not make any sense. But it's like the reason that I like this kid so much is just the fact that he comes in. He's like 8 years old and comes up to his mom and is like, "Can I have a stomach pounder and a Coke?" So weird.
Yeah. I think that should be our mission when this episode comes out. We'll tweet it at John Carpenter.
What the
Please
fuck
explain
is a
to us.
pounder? I think he has. Like
Has
he said, but like none of the explanations make any sense.
Right,
I think he said that it's an exercise, which doesn't make any sense.
A stomach pounder and a Coke. Yeah,
I
don't know. Sorry, I wanted to ask that and see if you knew, because that line caught me off guard as well. I was like,
I googled it and I can only find it people on like horror movie forums saying, "I've just watched The Fog. What the hell is a stomach pounder?"
It's really funny. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So her Mrs. Cobra's death is pretty brutal, and then we've got Dan the weatherman as well. Gets got. He refuses to listen to Stevie. Yeah. She's trying to warn him, don't go outside, don't go into the fog. But no, he gets grabbed and hacked.
And another John Carpenter mainstay. It's Charles Cyphers.
He's the sheriff
from Halloween.
Yeah. I can't remember his name, but I recognize him.
Sheriff Brackett.
So that's 5. That's 5 deaths.
Yeah.
And then as the fog starts to come into town, all of our heroes kind of conglomerate. Is that converge.
They all go to the church.
They all go to the church.
They all go to the church.
They all meet up.
Yeah.
That's what I get for trying to use fancy words.
They conglomerate on the church.
They all meet up at the church, with the exception of Stevie, who's stuck at the lighthouse as the fog comes down the hill and up the lighthouse. And this Father Malone discusses with them and tells them what he found, and he thinks there was 6. I can't remember what he says. It was either 6 victims on the boat, or it was the 6 founders. I think it's called the
6 founders.
6 founders. And he reckons that they were going to take 1 life for each of the 6 founders.
Yeah.
So they work out, it's like, 5 people have been killed so far, so there's only 1 left. And Father Malone's just like, let it be me. Let them take me.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
Poor Father Malone. He just hates his life so bad.
He's not a happy man.
But then there's also the crucifix.
They discover they discover the gold. There's a line in the journal, something about, because it's Father Malone's journal, the original Father Malone. The
OG Father Malone.
The OG. He says something like, if only I could return their treasure to them, and sort of ask for forgiveness. So they kind of figure out, well, maybe we can find the treasure. What's this in the wall that the journal fell out of? Yeah. Oh, it's a giant gold crucifix. I think he says like they melted it down and formed it into a crucifix for
whatever
reason.
Yeah.
So Hal Holbrook goes and carries it out. Like, it's obviously a very fake prop, but he's like sort of struggling down the church pews, and he encounters the ghost pirates. They're not even pirates.
Everyone says they're pirates. They're ghost sailors.
Ghost men.
They're just ghosts.
Ghost pirates sound so much cooler. Like, What?
They're just normal ghosts.
Well, yeah.
They're just innocent ghosts.
Shut up. Yeah, that shot in the church where they're all like standing and they're just so still and it's got the red eyes and just the outlines, the shadows. It's so creepy, man. As he goes up and holds up the crucifix to kind of say like, "Forgive us, please." And this is kind of intercut with Stevie's fight up atop the lighthouse. She's kind of fighting off two ghosts, and we get our first and only real look at the ghost. She like kicks it in the face, or hits it, and it like turns to the side, and it's this gross like green.
It's all like
makeup
rotten,
with like worms coming out of the face. It's horrible.
Yeah, I love it.
But
so slimy.
So it doesn't look nice. And that's the crucifix glows for some reason.
Yeah. Of course it does.
And Captain Blake kind of it seems to accept that as penance, I suppose, for what happened. And the ghost and the fog all disappear, and that's it. Everyone's happy. Stevie's alive. She didn't get killed. Everyone's in the church. They all leave happy. They all. Tom Atkins pops a cigarette and looks off into the sunset and says like, "Oh, there goes the fog."
Yeah,
he doesn't actually say that. It'd be great if he was like, "There goes the fog." And then we have the final scene with Father Malone walking back into the church, and he turns around and he sees the fog starting to come through the door, and we get the shot of him with the ghost reappeared behind him, and this great final shot of him just like swinging the sword towards Father Malone's neck, and the film cuts, and that's it.
It's such a perfect ending.
Chef's kiss.
Such a perfect
beautiful
ending to a perfect film.
It's just
great.
It's so just it's such a like horror template. Like if all horror films were like this, that were able to balance like likable characters, genuine scares, great atmosphere, no fluff, plot, nothing, like no padding or anything, the world would be a better place.
Incredible music, or just sound design in general, but like the soundtrack is just amazing.
It is. It's just spot on. And it's just, such a good film. Just love it. I love Stevie's little car.
Yeah.
I really want that car.
It's a Volkswagen thing.
Thing?
It's a thing. Yeah, Volkswagen thing. That's what it's called.
Do they still sell them?
I don't know, maybe.
Probably not.
They've lasted a long time because this is like a really weird fact that I know from somewhere. They came from, they were like, they weren't just like remade exactly, but they're based on designs for Kubelwagens, which were like the German infantry's equivalent of a Jeep in the Second World War.
All right, okay.
So like that design of car lasted for a really long time. They did keep getting made until like the late 20th century.
You know nothing about cars. Why do you know this?
I don't know. I know weird stuff. I just like weird facts stick in my brain.
You just, accumulate various facts about
pretty much
Volkswagen.
About Volkswagen things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a weird little car.
Yeah.
And for a weird little lighthouse with a really big staircase
that's
outside.
The life.
That's it. That's the dream.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see where you place it on the scale. How many stars out of 5 would you give it?
5.
Full 5.
Full 5. This is a 5 out of 5.
Glad we're in agreement there.
Yep.
Because
this is one of the best horror films ever made.
Yeah.
I can easily just recommend this to anybody.
I think rather controversially, I would rather put this on during Halloween than Halloween.
Yeah. The reason that I love Halloween so much at that time of year is because it has the autumnal atmosphere. It captures the feeling of that time of year a lot better than this does.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
But I do agree that this is a better film.
I think it is. I really think it is. And I don't think many people agree.
And this is coming from the original Halloween is one of my favorite films as well. Yeah. This isn't me saying that I think Halloween is bad by any means, but I think this is this is better and underappreciated.
It very much is. It bothers me that so many people are quick to dismiss it, because I think it's just wonderful from start to finish. It's such a great horror film.
Yeah.
Well, one film down.
One film down. Okay.
The next film up in our Friday night double bill is The Fog again.
Fog.
But the 2005 version.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start with this one, if I'm being honest.
Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, do you want to take it? I feel like you've got a lot more disdain.
Yeah.
Just for things in general.
Yeah, that's true. So, like I mentioned, the thing about the original, like it has such an amazing opening scene with John Houseman's character doing the whole classic ghost story stuff. He's got his little watch,
yeah,
and it's like the very atmospheric, and then you cut and you've got the great music with the title card and everything. In this, we get a shot of like the Elizabeth Dane burning.
Yep.
Like it shows the 100 years ago first, or it's not actually explicitly 100 years ago in this. It's about 140 years ago or something.
Oh, does it say that?
Well, it's not like on the 100th anniversary anymore.
All right,
they don't do anything about it being like the Founders Day festival or like 100 years ago to the day. It's just a thing that happened.
I didn't even notice that. I think my brain was just filling in the gaps.
Because they say it was like 1870.
All right, okay.
And then the film's set in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like 135 years ago.
I didn't even peg that. I just figured because they're doing like the unveiling of this new statue that it was like, oh, it must be for a celebration. But yeah, maybe it's not.
I don't think it is. I don't even know if there is anything in particular that causes them to come back that night. They're just there. So we get this flashback to the Elizabeth Dane not only sinking but also on fire for some reason. And then a group of people leaving on a lifeboat, and then a hand reaches out of the water for a jump scare. And then it cuts and we get the title card set to Fall Out Boy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know the film's going to be good when the intro's set to Fall Out Boy. Oh, yeah.
So at that point, I paused the movie and I got up and I got myself a drink. And and just from there, it's wild. Like, a lot of it hits the same kind of beats, really. You've got basically all of the same characters. You're following basically the exact same plot, but just done
worse.
Like, a lot of the casting isn't good. I don't want to say it's completely terrible, because some of the actors that are in it I quite like. Like, you've got, well, first off, Selma Blair as
Stevie Wayne.
Playing Stevie Wayne, Adrienne Barbeau's character. I don't think she does a good job of playing. She's like trying to do Adrienne Barbeau. Like, when she's on the air, she's doing the sultry voice and the kind of like being a bit flirty and being a bit sexy and ooh, look at me, it's the witching hour, ooh. And she doesn't do that particularly well, but I really like the scenes when it's like her with her son. I think Selma Blair is just like generally quite good in this. She's like
definitely
quite,
not a bad casting,
charming.
Choice. Yeah,
she's just a good actress in general. You've got Tom Welling playing Nick, Superman from Smallville. Not an amazing actor.
He's okay. He's a handsome man.
He is good looking. I think maybe the only positive note that I made while I was writing my notes and watching this film is Tom Welling is hot. Like, he is hot. He's not necessarily a great actor, but like, he seems like he would be a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he is very good looking, so I'm not that mad about it.
I don't know what he's done since Smallville.
He was in Lucifer.
Oh, was it
the TV series, the DC TV series?
Because I thought he was the one that was in DC universe, the Atom, but that's not. It's Brandon Routh.
It's Brandon Routh,
who's the other Superman.
Yeah, but I think
getting them mixed up.
I think they did both appear in they did like the crossover. There was like the whole big crossover thing where they had like Kevin Conroy was in it and like all the different ones. I think he appeared in that for one episode or for a cameo or something. But yeah, anyway, Tom Welling. Superman. And it's just like, and then Maggie Grace is Elizabeth she was in Lost. I don't really recognize her from much else.
See, I thought I
Lost.
recognized her, but
Yeah.
I'd have not seen anything else that she's been in.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where I know her from.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Lost was the thing. The
Lost,
only thing I
maybe,
knew her
yeah.
from. But like this is where we start getting the weird changes because like they talk about how Nick and Stevie Wayne slept together. Like, oh, they slept together 3 or 4 times or whatever. And like, oh, Elizabeth is his ex-girlfriend who left and came back. Like, they're all originally from... And it's not Antonio Bay, it's Antonio Island.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in Oregon instead of California. And it's like, why are you bothering to change all of these things? Yeah. Like, I know this is just the problem with remakes in general, is that it's like, if you keep it exactly the same, why bother remaking it?
Yeah.
But anytime you change something for no good reason, it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
So it's got all of these weird little things like that, like Elizabeth and Nick used to date, and like that, and then
it's implied that they were still dating, and then she left.
She just like
and
ran
they didn't
off.
Actually break up, and then that he's just out driving one night in the sort of the same way that Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis meet in the original, and he kind of says, "Hey, you need a lift," and then he realizes it's her.
Yeah,
and it's like, "Oh, I already know you. We already have an established history that no one cares about."
Yeah. Very weird. I think they just kind of felt the need to justify it, like that them sleeping together. Like, you can't sleep together when you first meet each other. That's weird.
I
mean, it is a little weird, but like,
well, I mean,
you don't need to rewrite the film for it.
No,
you know?
I like the way that they do it in the original. I like the fact that it's just two strangers that just happen to get along really well, and that's kind of that's their little adventure. Whereas here, it kind of takes that sort of element of not magic, but like element of just spontaneity out of it. Yeah, you know,
it does feel very kind of 2005 that they're trying to force this like love triangle. They're doing the like, oh, like Nick and Stevie slept together, but Nick and Elizabeth are like on and off dating, and like,
but he only meets Stevie once.
Yeah,
throughout the film.
They only see each other.
They bump into
each other on the street, and then they see each other right before the end of the film. Because Stevie Wayne doesn't stay in the lighthouse in this one. She leaves to also go, and they don't do it in the church. They go to like the town hall instead of the church.
Yeah.
But like they do all the same stuff. They just keep changing minor things. I shouldn't be criticizing that because there's so much real stuff to criticize. Like the dialogue being terrible, the soundtrack being just boring and generic. The dialogue?
You mean you didn't like testicle telepathy?
Why did they have, well, Spooner's a new character.
Yeah.
Who talks about testicle telepathy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so Spooner's Nick's friend and colleague, kind of, yeah. They're both out on the fishing ships. And it's when he's talking about Nick's talking about sleeping with someone else, and Spooner says something like, "Oh, but aren't you still with Elizabeth? Even though she's been gone 6 months, she has all girls have testicle telepathy. Mm-hmm. They know when you're sleeping with someone else." And I like your first moment of pausing it and waiting it, I was just staring at the screen like,
what are you doing?
Who wrote this?
Yeah. Yeah. Grim.
Yeah. I completely agree. Like all the changes from the film, one, make very little sense at the best of times, and two, just detract from the story.
Yeah.
Like that, the fact that Elizabeth and Nick were already together, that just adds this extra level of fluff and unnecessity. Unnecessary garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, he has lines about like, "Oh, I was going to propose to you before you left," and then she's like, "Really?" And he's like, "No." And it's like, why are we doing this? This is something that I noticed that like it must have happened a few times, but like maybe halfway through the film, I noticed that they kept doing it, and it was something about the dialogue being terrible. And I'm interested to see if you noticed it as well, but it reached the point where it kept happening over and over after I noticed it, and it made me crack up every time. Something would happen, and there would be two characters, and one of the characters would question it, and then the other one would say, "I don't know," and then they would move on. Like, they're out, when the seagrass gets attacked, there's Spooner and some other guy who's like Nick's cousin or something.
Yeah.
They're with these two girls, and they're out, and like the fog rolls in, and one of them goes, what's, and then they hear a noise and one of them's like, what's that? And the other one goes, I don't know. And then it cuts. And then later on, there's a scene when they found the diary and Elizabeth's like telling the story of like, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm meeting with Blake tonight. And then Superman goes, who's Blake? And then she goes, I don't know. And then it cuts to different characters doing different things. And it's like, why are you, if you don't know, why are you putting it in the film? You're supposed to be doing an exposition dump.
Yeah.
Why are you like writing I don't know in the middle of your exposition dump? You're the one who's supposed to know you're doing the exposition. It cracked me up, but also it made me so mad. It's just...
I hear you.
Oh my God.
This is one, and like obviously I'm going to keep comparing it to the original, right? But yeah, what the original does so well is literally the first scene in the fucking movie is exposition.
Yeah.
It's telling you about the history of the town. We don't get any of that until like a third of the way through the film at best. And even then it's kind of piecemeal. Like if you haven't seen the original film, you're not knowing what's going on until like a good way through the film.
Yeah.
It's just, it's drip fed through you to you. And it just really irritated me because I'm like, oh, the fog's coming in. Why is there fog there? Mm-hmm. There's no reason for fog to be there. We don't know about the fog yet.
Yeah.
We don't know there's a history of the town with the fog. It's just a random thing that's happening if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It made no sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they did not pace the plot well at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mr. Macon, whatever his name was as well, is just like a creepy, like...
He's like a creepy homeless dude.
guy.
Yeah. Who like has a like his metal detector on the beach and then he gets killed.
And then
and that's it. And I was just, you see him fairly early in the film.
He bumps
He's
into
kicking
Elizabeth,
about. He bumps into Elizabeth. I think you see a shot of him.
Yeah, he finds
something on the.
It's the watch. He finds
the watch, and then you see him and he gives it to Elizabeth, and it's at that point that she says his name.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my God, that's supposed to be John Houseman? How is that supposed to be?" Oh,
I said the exact same thing. I was like, "Surely they're not trying to make him the same character."
No.
And then I looked it up and it was like, yeah, his name's Mr. Macon or Macon.
So
and I was like, okay, fine.
And then a similar thing with Father Malone as well. They have this.
He's in it for like 2 scenes.
He's barely in the film for one thing. Yeah. But they have the scene with Nick and Elizabeth driving, except this time they're in the middle of the town instead of being out on like a country road or something on the first night, and like all the windows smash out of nowhere and it's spooky and creepy. And then they're sitting there in the car. And Father Malone like runs up to the passenger side window and goes, "Murderers! They're all murderers!" And it's like, okay, first of all, dial it back. I don't know what you're doing here all of a sudden. And I was like, okay, cool. So they're skipping the bit with him finding the diary. He like already knows. They're going to reveal later on. He's going to be some like exposition. Like they're going to go to him and he's going to reveal that he found the diary the day before, and that's when they're going to do the exposition thing. And then no, Elizabeth finds the diary in Nick's house. Or like in like the boathouse, and then goes and tells it to Father Malone. And it's like, how did he know they were murderers? He didn't have the diary.
Yeah. And he says like blood for blood as well. He like screams it in a drunken stupor. And you're like, yeah, actually that's a really good point. How did he know that?
How does he know that?
Well, funnily enough, another huge criticism I have about this film, adding to the list, on the boat, on the seagrass, when the fog starts to roll in, one of the two nameless girls that Spooner's trying to sleep with go into the front room, and it all fogs up, and she like gets possessed.
Oh yeah,
and like draws.
It's like the
sails.
It's like the scales of justice.
But it's like the emblems from the sails of the Elizabeth Dane.
Yeah. It's like the scales.
But the scales. And she draws that kind of mindlessly on the condensation on the window. I was like, so they're doing like a possession thing now? The fog like possesses you?
I guess.
So I don't know, like did the same thing happen to Father Malone? Was he possessed by the fog?
I don't know. Maybe.
And told to scream those things?
Maybe.
There's the other guy who gets fucking leprosy on his cheek.
Yeah.
And it's just never explained.
I didn't even realize that was what that was supposed to be. That's like, Nick's Uncle Hank. You see a shot of him and it's like, oh, his cheek's gammy. But they never even say that's what it is. It's just like he's got...
The first time they see it is that he's got like sort of a plaster on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. He's hurt his face. Okay. Yeah. You didn't explain it, but whatever.
They like linger on the shot, so you know that it's going to be relevant.
And then later on he comes back and he says something like, I don't know how this happened. And it's like, well, we don't either. Tell us.
Yeah, we're the audience.
And then he dies.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's just never explained.
And then he just dies. And there's the whole thing, like Elizabeth is now Mrs. Williams' daughter.
Yeah.
And she's having flashback dreams. She keeps having dreams throughout the film of like, oh, I keep seeing a boat and it's on fire and I keep seeing the whatever in the fog.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, great. We really didn't need to add this. We didn't need to add this as a plot line. We didn't need to make her psychic.
Nope.
Or whatever. I don't want to skip ahead to what happened at the end, but that wound me up. Yeah, I have a note there. What happened to Uncle Hank's face? Like, I'm like, because I saw it, we got to it, and I was just like, okay, did I miss a line of dialogue? Did I miss? Because like his dog gets killed.
Yeah, his dog dies. I was really sad about that.
And then I was like, did he get attacked? And I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
But no, it's apparently leprosy, I guess.
In fairness to the only reason I thought it was leprosy is because in the flashback scenes where we see the crew of Elizabeth Dane, it's the same style of makeup they've got on.
Yeah.
He never actually says.
He never says like, oh, I've got leprosy now.
Yeah. I guess I've got leprosy.
That would have been really funny.
Womp. No, and yeah, then he just dies and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the scene where they crash the car and she goes flying through the windscreen, but the windscreen's not even broken.
Yeah.
Which again, just dumb. It's just dumb. Yeah. And then Hank runs into the middle of the road and he's like, I'm looking for my dogs. I can't find my dogs. And he's like, Hank, we need to go. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving without my dogs. And I was like, yeah, okay, I kind of relate.
Yeah, I respect that.
Kind of get that. You know what?
I respect that.
Yeah, I dig it. And then he dies without his dogs. And I was like, well, poor Hank. He didn't deserve that. His dog didn't deserve that.
Yeah. We've got the whole... I don't even think we're doing this in order anymore. We're just picking at different things.
I'm literally just reading off my list of criticisms.
But like, so we had the whole thing, when the seagrass... It doesn't sink, but like the people on the seagrass get killed, except Spooner, who's still alive, and he hides in the fridge.
The freezer. The freezer would have killed him. Sea.
Definitely would have died. But okay, so he hides in the freezer and he's still alive and they assume that he murdered them. But luckily he was filming the whole thing for some reason, because I think he's making amateur porn or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
He's so they have the camcorder and it's Superman's watching the footage on the camcorder to try and prove that Spooner's innocent. And it's like you hear like some of the dialogue from earlier, and then he fast forwards on this digital camcorder and it makes VHS tape fast forward sounds. And that, I was irrationally angry. It took me way out of it because I was like, why is it doing that? Why did they program a digital camcorder to make VHS sounds?
Was it definitely digital? Because remember you had those old camcorders, they have little tapes in them.
No, it wouldn't have been like a VHS tape, like a video camcorder.
Not a VHS, but they had like the little tapes.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I guess maybe 2005.
Did you used to have them?
I would have assumed it was a digital one.
Maybe.
Then again, yeah, 2005.
Who knows?
Might not have been.
But yeah,
that wound me up.
What wound me up was the fact that they accused him of murder, and then like 2 scenes later, he just walks out of the hospital. And
he's just
nobody
gone.
cares.
He bumps into... He bumps into
Father Malone? Just before they go to the town hall at the end. But they just let him go.
They don't explain why he's
no
gone.
Consequences.
They don't ever show him like proving his innocence or anything.
Oh well.
If anything, they start to suspect that Elizabeth is being weird because they walk in and they find her screaming with the dead body on the floor that's been tampered with.
Oh yeah.
And even Superman is like, how do I know that you didn't do it? How do I know that you're not insane and you didn't just tamper with the body for no reason? And then they never go anywhere with that either.
Yep.
He's just like, oh, well, I'll buy you a pint in the pub with all of these photographs that are here for obvious reasons. Photographs from the 1870s,
for
apparently.
lore. Antonio Island lore. She also drops the camcorder in the sea.
She does.
She takes the
just falls in the
camcorder
water.
and is told to keep it safe because that's what's going to exonerate Spooner.
And she just drops
And
it.
then as she's walking across a perfectly like level and like wide plank to the other side, it's presumably it's like the boat dock where the boat comes in. She just like slips, whoopsie, and drops,
falls in the water.
the camcorder in,
Yeah.
struggles against some seaweed, and then happens to find the journal on her way back out.
Yeah.
This movie makes no sense.
They're clearly trying to do all of the stuff from the original, but then not in exactly the same way. So they have to shoehorn it all into different scenes.
Yeah.
And just none of it works.
Can you see fog on a radar?
I don't know. He says it's Doppler. I don't really know enough about how that works. I mean, I guess fog would be denser than air, right? So it would.
I guess
You'd be able to monitor it somehow.
But it's like in the original, Dan the weatherman says, "Oh yeah, we've got fog. Like we can see there's fog coming in."
Mm-hmm.
But in the new one, the remake, he has it's like a sonar scanner.
Yeah.
Sonar wouldn't bounce off
Sonar wouldn't. No.
fog.
No. It
So
would
how
be
the
dense
hell
enough
can
for
he
that.
see it on sonar?
I don't know. I don't actually know how that would work.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Is how it would work.
Fair enough.
It just really bugged me. There's all these little things just adding up, man. It's So where did we get to?
Where do we get to?
Spooner's escaped.
Spooner's escaped. We get the Kathy dies, who's Mrs. What's her name? Mrs. Colebrook.
Colbert's. Oh yeah,
Colbert.
she's actually like auntie in this one.
She's
isn't she?
Stevie Wayne. She's a relation of Stevie Wayne, which ties into it because they're trying to do the thing that all the main characters are descendants from the founders.
Yeah.
Which wasn't in the original. Yeah, she dies. She like burns up, or she like rots away from leprosy or
she
something.
gets grabbed by the ghost from like
from
the sink.
garbage disposal.
Oh yeah, from the garbage disposal, and then she just like disintegrates.
And it looks terrible because they use all CGI and no practical effects in this movie, which look terrible.
I was going to say that the fog in particular
looks bad.
Looks really bad.
Yeah,
it does not look good. Like when a film that's from now. What would it be? 25 years.
25 years
prior.
Yeah.
In 1980, had all practical effects that looks better than what you're doing with CGI. You shouldn't be using CGI.
Yeah. At this point, I've just got so many notes that are just making fun of this for not making any sense. The Stevie Wayne crashes her car into the water at some point.
Yep.
And then there's
there's
a CGI ghost in the water that looks terrible.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the ghost from the beginning of Ghostbusters. I referred to it as a Ghostbusters ass ghost because that's what it looks like to me.
Goofy ass Ghostbusters. Yeah.
And her son the fog's coming into the house and he tries to tape up the door, but he like tapes it up horizontally. He doesn't put the tape like along the crack of the door.
Yeah.
He puts it like.
To be fair,
perpendicular to the
originally I
crack in the
criticised
door.
that. I was watching it. I was like, he doesn't think that's going to keep the ghost out, does he? I was like, no, but he's trying to keep the fog out.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, it probably would if
you were trying
did
to
get
keep
it along the seams.
Yeah, but he doesn't do it along the seams. That's what I'm saying.
He does.
No, he doesn't. He does it perpendicular to the seams in the door.
He like sticks it all over.
Yeah, like he does like multiple bits, but he does it like perpendicular to the door. He doesn't do it. He doesn't actually.
He's a child. He doesn't.
I know he's an
understand
idiot. Probably doesn't even know what a stomach pounder is.
That's the most egregious thing of all. He doesn't ask for a stomach pounder.
Stomach pounder.
That's the worst part of the remake.
Yeah. At this point, I was bewildered by the whole thing, and I was like, "How long is there left in this movie?" And there was only like 10 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, thank God."
But it does. It kind of starts to line up with the plot of the original.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with Stevie takes. It's not a plank of wood in this. It's like a hairbrush.
Yeah.
It's an old disintegrated hairbrush, and that catches on fire, and she starts to see things on the monitors in her sort of booth, and then we get. Nick and Elizabeth, there's a scene in the hospital where the dead body comes to life. That all happens in the original. And then Nick goes out to save Andy when the fog starts to come in, and he does go and save him. That scene, right? He shouts at Elizabeth as he gets out the car. He says, "Keep the engine running and turn the car around so we're ready to go." And then she sits down, moves in the driver's seat, and just starts reading a book and does nothing.
Yeah. I think they get back in the car and the car's still facing the other direction and she can't start it again.
Like, if you want...
Maybe she was responsible for the whole thing.
Maybe she was.
She was...
It's like, if you want us to care about your heroes in a film...
Don't make them
idiots. Them competent.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I cared about Tom Welling in that moment. Because I was like, you poor thing, you've had to put up with her. You've had to be in a relationship with her. She clearly does nothing.
She's completely useless. And then, yeah, they leave. They do the thing. They go to the city hall.
They do the thing
instead of the church.
Go to the place.
The mayor gets killed as well. The mayor who is now Father Malone's dad as well.
I was going to ask that.
They're both called Malone. So they presumably must be related. I'm assuming he must be Father Malone's dad.
But they don't explicitly say anything about it.
I don't know if they do. The mayor wasn't even in the original, I don't think. They kind of make reference to the mayor, but I don't think he was actually.
I think he's at the podium and says something that kind of off screen as he's
Yeah.
talking while people are doing stuff.
Yeah.
But the mayor gets dragged out and gets set on fire by the ghosts.
Yeah. And then Elizabeth goes out and then kisses Blake and then
Ghost Blake,
and then she turns into a ghost. And then it turns out that she was a ghost the whole time, I guess, because she's a descendant or reincarnation of Blake's wife who had leprosy.
Who was also called Elizabeth.
Who was also called Elizabeth, who I guess is who the ship is named after. Maybe. And then we get this shot of like their wedding photos. And that's the end of the film.
And it didn't come soon enough.
It did not come soon enough. And I don't know what it was, if it was just the fact that it came out in 2005, or if it was the tone of the film, or whatever. But when the film, like right as the film cut to black, in that very second, I would have bet my life, I would have bet my very mortal soul that the end credits music was going to be All the Things She Said by Tattoo. I don't know why I was convinced but it wasn't, and I was very disappointed. I thought that was what it was going to be.
Why on earth would it be Tattoo?
I don't know. Why did it open with Fall Out Boy?
I don't know. It had Jamiroquai in there as well.
It did have Jamiroquai. I can just imagine Captain Blake wearing the big hat, the Jamiroquai hat, and doing the woo, like floating towards,
dancing around in the big disco
with
ball.
The hook.
What as he does.
On the Elizabeth Day, and the furniture is moving, and he's staying still.
I need to find someone who I can commission to draw that, because that's too good.
Jamiroquai as Captain Blake from The Fog.
That would make my life. If anyone knows how to draw and would fancies doing that,
please,
we'll pay you.
Yeah. We'll
get it framed for the studio.
We will. We'll put it up in the studio.
This
movie sucked.
Oh, it was so bad. Because you watched it before me.
Yeah.
You watched it earlier in the week than I did. And you messaged me a couple of times during it, not really giving anything away, but you were kind of saying like, this is awful. Mm-hmm. This is so bad. And I was like, it's a 2005 horror film.
Yeah.
It's probably not great.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably got some goofy moments, but there's usually kind of sort of so bad it's good element to most of these films from that era. You know, there's usually something you can find to enjoy in it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in this film. I could not tell you one positive. I genuinely don't think I could.
I could think of two off the top of my head that are like totally insubstantial positives. One, Tom Welling being hot. And two...
completely irrelevant
to the plot of the film, but still. And two, I did kind of like the scene when they were with the hairbrush catching fire, and it like sets fire to a bunch of like drawings that Stevie's son did.
Yeah.
And then when she puts the fire out, they're all burnt in the shape of the scales. I liked that. Everything else was absolute ass.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It should not have been made. And John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were like producers. This was like the last thing that Deborah Hill did before she died.
Oh, poor thing.
Which is just, it's so sad.
Yeah.
Because I love Deborah Hill.
No, you know what? Tell you what, in my notes I just noticed, the very end, Stevie Wayne's narrating, and the last thing she says is, "We still don't know why." And I was like, yep, that encapsulates the film perfectly.
Encapsulates the entire film. But you do know why. They had the diary. They explained why.
Why? Explain to me why Elizabeth was sort of a ghost, but really a descendant of a ghost.
Oh, no, I thought you meant why the ghosts came back. The ghosts came back for revenge. That's why.
Oh, yeah, we knew that.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was what she was saying. Why?
I thought she was just like saying,
she was saying why
in general.
Why did my ex-boyfriend's ex-girlfriend turn out to be the wife of a dead pirate? Nightmare.
Why do bad things happen to good people? I don't know. It seems like every single change they made from the original film somehow made it worse.
Completely pointless and
half the characters just had no point being in the film.
Yeah.
Like they added the character of Spooner.
Yeah.
He gave us
pointless.
testicle telepathy.
He gave us testicle
and then
telepathy.
bounced, and that was it.
You've got the mayor,
no other
like,
meaningful contribution.
The mayor's like the final death, which is so pointless because
Father Malone.
He
as
had
well.
like
he
one
gets,
line
like,
earlier on.
Yeah.
Father Malone and like Mrs. Williams get killed.
Oh yeah, she gets
really.
She gets pulled out the window in the most goofy way possible.
There are like 3 scenes of women being thrown through windows in this film, and all of them look terrible.
Yeah.
There are 2, like one right after the other on the seagrass, and one of them looks like that meme from The Simpsons of Ralph being thrown head first through a window. Like she fully got like arms at her side, head first through the window of the boat.
What did he say? I'm a brick.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
This film is half a star out of 5.
Wow, we actually agree.
Can I give it 0?
You cannot give it a 0.
Half a star out of 5.
Yeah,
this
that's
is
being
one of the
generous.
worst films I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun to watch because it was terrible.
It was a lot of fun to criticize.
I would watch this again on several substances.
DMT.
Yeah,
let's get some DMT.
Get it fully, just like drop some tabs, and then we're gonna get.
There's so many better films we could watch.
The Fog 2005.
Yeah, like you know what? It actually puts the other newer remakes, things like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, which are
remake.
The Rob Zombie's Halloween, of course. By no means are they good films at all.
Yeah.
But it makes them look a hell of a lot better in comparison.
Yeah, because I've not really seen much of any of them. But like I think the only one I've seen start to finish is the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
I didn't hate it.
It's not. That's the thing about it, is that it's the reason that I hate it is that it's completely unnecessary and it feels completely generic and it's completely missing all of the stuff that made the original great. But it's not like totally terribly made. It's just generic. It's like boring because it's nothing.
Yeah.
This is actively bad.
Yeah. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like there's not a single plot point that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just the whole thing is a complete write-off.
Yeah.
And poor John Carpenter lending his name to this film. Maybe he did it at a laugh. Genuinely, maybe he did it at a laugh. Maybe he was like, I'm going to put my name on this and get people to go see it, so they have to watch it.
I kind of think that might be what it is. Like I watched some of this. I bought this on DVD because I really wanted to watch it so badly. I wanted to watch some of the special features out of curiosity because I love a special feature. And the interviews with John Carpenter, he's talking about, like, he says it was his idea to remake The Fog.
Oh, no.
He says, like, oh, me and Deborah Hill were talking, and, like, we said that we, like, would like to remake The Fog. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe that. Either that was just like the worst career move that John Carpenter has ever made in his life, or he was lying. and he was only involved as a producer to get a credit and some money out of his IP, because that's something that like has happened a lot. People asked him about like the Rob Zombie films, like, how do you feel about your films being remade without you being involved? And he's like, I don't care, I get paid.
Yeah.
Which I kind of respect. Get the bag. Good for you, John. But like, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, to be fair, it can't be easy having this string of incredibly successful films in the 80s, late 70s into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're talking, 6, 7 hugely popular, hugely profitable films.
Halloween, The Fog, The Thing.
They Live.
Escape
from New York.
I think Escape from New York and The Thing, kind of the 5 big ones, all came out within the span of like 5-6 years.
Yeah. So you're talking, that is the spike of his popularity.
Yeah.
And since then, he's kind of...
The Thing kind of spoiled it.
Dipped it out.
Because it was really heavily criticized, and everyone thought of him as like a... people thought that it was too gruesome and it was too horrible. I mean, it is. It's a scary film and it's gruesome and it's horrible, but like, everyone now thinks of it as a classic. But at the time, people hated it.
Yeah.
And that really ruined his career. Like, he got taken off. He was going to do Firestarter. It was a Firestarter film with Drew Barrymore, based on the Stephen King film.
Yeah.
He was going to be doing that. He was lined up to direct it. And then they got taken off. He got taken off because the studio was like, after what happened with The Thing, we can't risk putting you on a film. So he had to move back to more independent stuff. So like Big Trouble in Little China was like a much smaller production. It's a pretty solid film, but like much smaller production because no studios wanted to go near him.
Which is a real shame.
It is. He could have continued achieving really great stuff, and I think that, like, more from like a perspective of the kind of films that he wanted to make, definitely sort of ruined it for him.
But then at this point, you're like, you know, this is 2005. This is 20 odd years after he's kind of made his last big successful film.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably just like, someone wants to remake The Fog.
Yeah,
why not? I'll get some cash out of it.
I'm gonna go do The Ward.
The Ward with Amber Heard. I was trying to rhyme Ward with Heard, but it didn't work. Well, there you go.
Oh my God,
there's The Fog.
Yeah.
The Fogs.
The
multiple fogs. Let's make a remake. Let's make a further remake sequel. What are they called?
The Fogs.
The requel.
A requel.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Called The Fogs, where it's two separate factions of ghost pirates.
Two fogs coming from different directions. We're caught in the middle of the fogs.
Yeah. No, what was it I said to you? We should remake The Fog with Joe Rogan.
We should.
Dwayne.
Yeah, have him in.
The lighthouse.
He's doing a podcast about how much he hates women out of the lighthouse. Yeah. That's our hero.
That's him. He has to fight off the ghost pirates.
He has to fight off the ghost pirates, and he's in a lighthouse, and he's talking about how much he hates women.
He's just like roid rage, like fighting off.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, we should do that. We should definitely script that up. Send it to him and see what he thinks.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's enough shenanigans for us this week. It is April 21st, and we have, I feel, sufficiently honoured the fogs, multiple fogs.
We have.
We'll be back next week, where our theme will be technology. How mysterious. What are you bringing for us next week, Ewan?
Next week, I am bringing, I suppose this is technology is pretty wide-reaching. I am going for a very famous film that I am yet to see, to my shame. The original The Ring.
Okay.
VHS tapes, that's technology.
It's kind of, it surrounds technology.
I'm counting it.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been on my list for a while. I've still not seen it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch it.
Well, that's interesting because this will be, I think, the first week where I've seen both films and you've seen neither films.
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Because my pick for this week is one that I've been pestering you to watch for a very long time.
Yeah.
Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor, which I was incredibly impressed with after mixed reviews and debating whether I wanted to watch a Cronenberg film or not.
Yeah.
It's actually surprisingly tame as far as Cronenberg films go, but it's very good as well. Definitely recommend it. So there we go. The Ring and Possessor for next week.
It's exciting.
Interesting. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
I'll see you next week.
Yes, you will.
Goodbye then.
Goodbye.